Hey there, coffee lovers! I am so excited to talk about one of my favorite things, coffee tables. Coffee tables are the heart and soul of any living room, right? They serve as a gathering spot for friends and family, a place to put your feet up after a long day, and the perfect spot to enjoy your morning cup of joe. But why settle for a boring, standard coffee table when you can create your very own unique piece that will add both functionality and style to your space? Now, I know what you're thinking. But I don't have any experience in woodworking or building furniture. Well, let me tell you something. I was in the same boat a few years ago. I had zero experience and was terrified of power tools. But I decided to take a chance and give it a try, and boy am I glad I did. With just a few simple tools and some creativity, you can design and build your own coffee table that will make all your friends jealous. And trust me, nothing beats the satisfaction of creating something with your own two hands that you can be proud of. Now, let's talk about the process. We're going to guide you through the steps of building a rustic coffee table with a unique twist. But here's the thing, you can get as creative as you want. The sky is the limit, and that's the beauty of DIY projects. When I first started building my own furniture, I had a few mishaps. I once accidentally glued a piece of wood to my pants and had to walk around with it for the rest of the day. But hey, you learn from your mistakes, right? And the more I practiced, the more I fell in love with the art of woodworking. So, grab your tools, your creativity, and let's get to work. Whether you're into sleek modern designs or more rustic styles, there's a coffee table out there waiting for you to build it. And let me tell you, once you've created your masterpiece, you'll never want to settle for a boring store-bought table again. So, get ready to impress your friends and family with your amazing DIY coffee table. Trust me, it's worth the effort. And who knows, you might even find a new hobby that you love. I know I did. Now, let's get building and show off our amazing creations. Now, before we start, let me just say that building a coffee table from scratch might seem like a daunting task, but it's really not as complicated as it seems. With a few simple tools and some creativity, you'll be on your way to creating something beautiful that you can be proud of. First things first, you're going to need to gather your materials. For this project, you'll need 2x4s, 2 8-foot boards, 1x4s, 2 8-foot boards, 1x3s, 2 8-foot boards, 1x2s, 1 8-foot board, plywood, 1 4x8 sheet, wood glue, screws, 1 1/4 inch and 2 1/2 inch, sandpaper, stain or paint of your choice. Now, the measurements for the table we're going to make today are 48 inches long, 24 inches wide, and 18 inches tall. But don't worry if you want to make your table a different size, just adjust the measurements accordingly. Once you have your materials, it's time to get started. Alright, it's time to get to work on building our very own coffee table. So let's get started on the first step, building the table frame. Now, for this step, you're going to need some 2x4s, a saw, some wood glue, and some 2 1/2 inch screws. If you're like me and have a tendency to misplace your tools, make sure you've got everything you need before you start. Trust me, I've had to run out to the hardware store in the middle of a project more times than I'd like to admit. Okay, now that we've got everything we need, it's time to start cutting. You're going to need two 2x4s that are 48 inches long and 2 more that are 21 inches long. If you're not comfortable with the saw, ask someone who is or have a friend come over and help you out. Once you've got your pieces cut, we're ready to start building. Take the two 21-inch boards and attach them to the ends of the 48-inch boards using wood glue and 2 1/2 inch screws. This will form a rectangular frame. Easy, right? Now, repeat this process to make a second identical frame. And just like that, you've got your table frame all set and ready to go. Make sure to measure everything twice to ensure that your frame is square and even. Alright, so we've got the frame set up, but we're not done yet. It's time to add some cross supports to make sure our coffee table is sturdy enough to handle all the coffee cups and books that we're going to put on it. For this step, you'll need to cut 41x4s to 24 inches long. Now, let me tell you, when I first attempted to cut wood for a project like this, I didn't measure correctly and ended up with pieces that were way too long or too short. It was a real mess, let me tell you. So make sure you measure twice and cut once. Once you've got your 4 24-inch pieces, it's time to attach them to the inside of one of the frames. Apply some wood glue and use 2.5-inch screws to secure the pieces in place. These cross supports are going to help distribute the weight of the table evenly, which is important for making sure it doesn't wobble or collapse. Now, take the second frame and repeat the process to attach the cross supports. And just like that, you've got yourself a sturdy table frame that's ready for the next steps. Keep in mind, the more support you add, the sturdier your table will be, so don't be afraid to add a few more cross supports if you want to be extra careful. Alright, let's move on to the next step. Great, now that we have the frames and cross supports done, it's time to add some legs to our coffee table. For this, you'll need 4 1x3s and some screws. To get started, place one of the frames upside down on your work surface. Then, measure and cut 4 1x3s to 18 inches long. Once you have your legs cut, it's time to attach them to the frame. Simply place one leg at each corner of the frame and use wood glue and 1 1/4-inch screws to secure them in place. Make sure the legs are flush with the corners of the frame and that they're all the same height. You don't want a wobbly coffee table, after all. Repeat this process with the other frame, making sure the legs are identical in height and placement. And just like that, you have the frame and legs of your coffee table. Now, let's take a quick break and talk about my experience with this step. I remember when I built my first coffee table, I thought this step would be a breeze. But when it came to attaching the legs, I realized that one of them was slightly longer than the others. It was just a tiny difference, but it was enough to make the whole table wobbly. So, make sure you measure carefully and triple check the height of your legs before attaching them. Anyway, let's move on to the next step. We're almost there. We've got our table frames built and now it's time to bring them together. This part might seem a little tricky, but don't worry, we'll guide you through it. First, grab one of your table frames and place it upright on your work surface. Then, take the second frame and carefully place it on top of the first one, making sure they're aligned and the cross supports are flush with each other. This is where you'll need to channel your inner superhero strength because you want to make sure the frames are securely attached to each other. To do that, grab your wood glue and apply it liberally to the cross supports of one frame. Then, using 2.5-inch screws, carefully attach the frames together through the cross supports. You don't want to rush this step or you may end up with a wonky table. And voila! You now have the foundation of your beautiful rustic coffee table. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Now, take a step back and admire your handiwork. Give yourself a pat on the back and a well-deserved break. It's time to add the tabletop. You'll need a piece of plywood that's 48 inches long and 24 inches wide. Go ahead and cut that out. And just like before, sand the edges of the plywood to get rid of any roughness or splinters. Once you're happy with the edges, you're going to attach the plywood to the top of the table using some wood glue and 1 1/4-inch screws. Be sure to center it perfectly and make sure it's all level before you start drilling. If you're like me and love to add some personality to your DIY projects, you can get creative with the type of plywood you use. You can use reclaimed wood, stained wood, or even add some stencils or artwork to the surface. Just remember, the sky's the limit when it comes to making your coffee table unique and truly your own. So let those creative juices flow, and let's finish up this project. We're in the home stretch now. It's time to make our coffee table look pretty. The first thing we need to do is sand it down to make sure it's nice and smooth. You don't want anyone getting splinters while they're enjoying their cup of joe. Now, this is where I really messed up the first time I made a coffee table. I was so excited to finally be finished with the build that I skipped the sanding step. And boy, did I regret it later. Not only was it uncomfortable to touch, but it also looked super unprofessional. So, take it from me, don't skip the sanding step. Once you've sanded the table, it's time to add some color. You can choose to paint it, but I personally love the look of stained wood. It gives it a classic, rustic feel. Just make sure you choose a stain that complements your decor. You don't want to end up with a table that clashes with the rest of your room. Now, I know what you're thinking. How long do I have to wait for the stain to dry? Well, my friend, that depends on the type of stain you're using. Check the manufacturer's instructions to see how long it will take. In the meantime, you can catch up on your favorite show, or better yet, make another cup of coffee to enjoy on your new table. And there you have it. That's how you build a rustic coffee table from scratch. I made one for my living room, and I have to say, it's my favorite piece of furniture in the house. It's sturdy, it looks great, and it was a lot of fun to make. So why not give it a try? And don't forget to make it your own, add your own personal touches to make it uniquely yours. And don't let me forget the FAQs. Everyone's favorite section. Let's tackle these questions one at a time. First up, do I need to have experience in woodworking to build a coffee table? No way, Jose. Anyone can build a coffee table, regardless of their experience level. Don't let your lack of experience hold you back from tackling this fun project. Just make sure you have the right materials and a solid plan to guide you along the way. Next question, how long does it take to build a coffee table? Well, that depends on a few things. The complexity of the design and your level of experience will definitely play a role in how long it takes you to finish your coffee table. But for a simple rustic design, you could easily complete it in a weekend. So, clear your schedule, grab some coffee, ironic, I know, and get ready to build. And finally, what tools do I need to build a coffee table? Great question. You'll definitely need a saw, a drill, and some screws to get started. But, depending on the design you choose, you might need some additional tools to make your project a success. For example, if you want to add some intricate detailing to your table, you might need a chisel or a router. Oh, and don't forget the importance of measurements. I learned that the hard way. One time, I was building a coffee table and didn't measure the legs correctly. Let's just say, it was a little lopsided. So, make sure you measure everything twice, maybe even 3 times, to ensure your table is stable and sturdy. Alright, that wraps up the FAQs. Remember, building a coffee table is a fun and rewarding project that anyone can tackle. Just make sure you have the right tools, a solid plan, and some patience, and maybe a few cups of coffee to get you through. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to build your own rustic coffee table. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more woodworking tips and tutorials. And remember, if you want to take your woodworking skills to the next level and get access to 16,000 plans for any project you have in mind, simply click the link in the description below. That's right, 16,000 plans. You'll never run out of project ideas again. Thanks for watching, and happy woodworking!